I have to be completely honest with you right out of the gate here. When I first picked up the stack of research for today's deep dive, my immediate reaction was, well, I felt defensive.
Oh, I completely understand that. It is a very jarring topic when you first encounter it.
Yeah, because the central premise of the source material we're looking at today, which is a fascinating piece called The Heavy Comfort of Familiar Sadness. The premise is that we might actually choose sadness over happiness.
Right, and that just sounds ridiculous on the surface.
It really does. It sounds like something you'd say to victim blame someone who is genuinely having a hard time. Like you're just choosing to be miserable today.
Which is such a harsh way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because it goes against absolutely everything we tell ourselves about our own motivations. I mean, we assume we're these rational actors constantly striving for joy or at least, some kind of relief.
Exactly. Nobody wakes up and says to themselves, it sounds great today. A solid dose of despair.
Right. No one does that intentionally.
We spend billions of dollars on self-help and therapy and endless distractions just to avoid feeling sad. So when I see a piece of research claiming that the human mind has this magnetic pull toward misery, I really have to ask if this is just pop psychology or if there's actual hardware in the brain driving it.
Oh, it is very much hardware. And you know that reaction you had.
Yeah.
That defensiveness.
Yeah.
That is actually part of the exact mechanism we are going to unpack today. Because the source isn't arguing that we enjoy pain in some sort of masochistic way.
Okay, so it's not about secretly liking the misery.
Not at all. It's arguing that the brain is essentially an optimization machine. But the catch is it is not optimizing for happiness. It is optimizing for prediction.
Optimization for prediction. Okay, so my brain doesn't actually care if I'm smiling. It just cares if it can accurately guess what's going to happen next.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. The source makes this really heavy point about the biology of safety. To your amygdala, which is the part of your brain constantly scanning for threat safety, does not mean warm blankets and hot cocoa.
Yeah. What does it mean then?
Safety just means known variables.
Known variables. So a known threat is essentially safer to the brain than an unknown treat.
That is the perfect way to put it, yes. If you are in a state of sadness or, say, a low-level anxiety, you know the parameters of that state.
Because I've been there a million times.
Exactly. You know how it feels. You know what your heart rate is doing. You know exactly what your thoughts look like. It is a closed loop. But happiness.
Happiness is a wild card.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially unexpected happiness. That is a massive variable. It's the unknown. And to a pure survival engine like the human brain, the unknown is where the tigers live.
Wow, that is incredibly frustrating. You're telling me that biologically my brain looks at a potential moment of joy and just says, alert unmapped territory. Retreat to the sad cave where we know where the walls are.
In a lot of cases, yes, that is exactly what it does. The source uses this phrase that really stuck out to me during my research. It says, familiarity is the highest form of safety.
Familiarity is the highest form of safety.
Right. So if your baseline for the last few years, or even just the last few months, has been stress or grief or just a general heaviness, your body has actually acclimated to that specific chemical cocktail.
So it's adjusted my cortisol levels, my adrenaline baseline, all of that.
100%. And if you suddenly take that stress away and replace it with genuine peace, your body literally goes into withdrawal.
Wait, withdrawal, like actual chemical withdrawal.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
If you were used to running on high-octane stress hormones day in and day out, peace doesn't feel like relaxation to your nervous system.
It feels like a trap.
Yes. It feels like something is missing. It feels like the other shoe is about to drop at any second.
I think this connects directly to that free day scenario the source describes, which, by the way, I related to this so hard it was actually uncomfortable to read.
It is a classic example. Let's walk through it for everyone listening. The scenario is this. You finally get a day off. No work, no crisis to manage, no immediate family drama, a complete vacuum of responsibility, right? Logic dictates you should be ecstatic. You should be lounging on the couch, relaxing.
But I'm usually not. In that exact scenario, I'm pacing around the house. Or I pick up my phone and start doom scrolling. Or, and this is the specific thing the source mentioned that completely called me out, I start replaying old arguments in my head.
Oh yeah, the mental replay.
I'll just sit there and think about something embarrassing I said 4 years ago at a party. Or a friendship that ended badly in college. And I always wonder, why do I do that? The sun is shining, I finally have free time. Why am I dragging a corpse into the living room?
Because the silence is terrifying to your nervous system.
Terrifying.
Yes, when that external pressure finally lifts, your internal alarm system basically says, wait, why is it so quiet? Where is the threat?
It thinks it missed something.
Exactly. It creates what neuroscientists call a discrepancy signal. And to resolve that discrepancy and feel safe again, your brain starts actively looking for a problem to match its baseline level of anxiety.
So I'm manufacturing a crisis in my head just to get my internal state to match my usual chemical levels.
You are seeking homeostasis. If your definition of home is sadness or stress, you will renovate a perfectly happy moment until it looks exactly like home.
That is wild.
And the source points out a really important distinction here. Scrolling through old sad messages or listening to melancholic music on your day off Isn't self-sabotage in the way we normally think of it? We think of self-sabotage as this malicious thing.
Right, like I'm trying to ruin my own life.
But it's actually regulation strategy. You are dosing yourself with familiarity to calm the intense anxiety of the unknown.
That is honestly twisted. It's like having Stockholm Syndrome with your own brain chemistry.
It really is, and it ties deeply into this concept of hope versus certainty that the source explores. It argues that hope is actually a high-risk activity for the human brain.
Which goes against literally every inspirational poster ever printed. I mean, we're always told hope is good, keep hope alive.
Socially, sure, but biologically, hope is expensive.
Oh, so.
Because hope implies that a prediction error might occur. If I hope for something good to happen and I don't get it, I experience a prediction error. And that actually triggers pain centers in the brain. It hurts to be wrong about something good. But if I just expect the worst from the start...
You can't be disappointed.
Exactly. You are insulated. The source calls sadness our emotional armor. It's a preemptive defensive posture. The logic is, if I stay low to the ground, I can't be knocked down.
I have definitely used that logic. It's the whole don't get your hopes up strategy. I remember when I was applying for jobs a few years ago, I would walk into the interview already completely convincing myself I didn't want the job anyway. I totally thought I was being realistic or stoic.
But you were actually just numbing the potential impact of a rejection. The source lists this as a key behavioral pattern, pre-rejecting yourself to avoid the shock of external rejection.
Yeah, that hits close to home.
But here is the mechanism that makes it really tricky. And the source implies this heavily in the research. When you predict something bad will happen, and then it actually does happen, you get a tiny hit of dopamine.
Wait, hold on. I get a reward for being right about my own misery.
You get a reward for an accurate prediction. Remember, the brain loves being right way more than it loves being happy.
Oh, wow.
So if you say to yourself, this date is going to be a complete disaster, and then it is a disaster, your brain clicks a little box that says, success. Our model of the world is perfectly accurate.
That explains so much. That explains that weird I told you so satisfaction people get even when the terrible thing happens directly to them.
Correct. It reinforces the loop. And over time, you start to really pride yourself on your cynicism. You view your sadness or your pessimism as realism.
Like you're the only one seeing clearly.
Right. You start to think that people who are happy are just naive or deluded, while you are the ones seeing the hard truth.
Which brings us perfectly to the section of the source that I found frankly the most mind-bending. They call it the realness trap. The idea that sadness intrinsically feels more real or true than happiness does.
This is a profound insight, and it has everything to do with the actual physics of emotion, specifically how emotion warps our perception of time.
I mean, we've all heard the cliche, time flies when you're having fun.
It's a cliche because it is biologically true. High arousal, positive states like joy, excitement, being in a flow state, they tend to bypass high-level cognitive processing.
Because you're just existing in the moment.
Exactly. You are in the moment, so you aren't consciously recording the passage of time. The memory is encoded very lightly. It feels like a blip when you look back on it.
But sadness is the opposite. A sad Sunday afternoon feels like it lasts for 3 solid weeks.
Because sadness, and particularly rumination, involves incredibly high-level cognitive processing. You are analyzing, you are replaying scenarios, you are thinking deeply about what went wrong.
So it just takes more brain power.
It requires way more attention. And the source argues that this intense focus actually slows down your perception of time. Because the moment feels heavier and lasts longer subjectively, we mistake that weight for significance.
Oh, wow. So because I spent 6 hours dwelling on a breakup and maybe only 20 minutes laughing with a friend over coffee, my brain assumes the breakup is the major plot point of my life and the laughter was just some filler scene.
Exactly. It is fundamentally a bandwidth issue. The brain prioritizes high arousal negative data for storage because that data is relevant to keeping you alive.
The tigers again.
Right. Remembering where you found the delicious berries is nice. Remembering exactly where the wolf attacked you is essential for survival.
So we have an internal filing system that is just completely rigged against us. It marks all the trauma as urgent keep forever, and all the joy goes straight to the junk mail auto-delete folder.
In our default state, yes. And this creates a massive distortion in your identity over time. Because if you look back at your life, and the memories that pop up most vividly and with the most weight are the sad ones, you inevitably draw a conclusion.
You conclude I am a sad person. My life is just a tragic story.
Yes. But the source is basically screaming that this is a data retrieval error. It's not that your life was 90% sad, it's that your brain only saved the sad PDFs to the desktop.
That is actually really liberating to hear. It means my entire narrative about myself might be based on totally faulty record keeping.
It almost certainly is. The records are skewed.
But just knowing that isn't enough to actually change it, right? We have to talk about how to break the loop, because right now I know for a lot of people listening, this armor of sadness has completely fused to their skin. They don't know how to take it off even if they want to.
And the source is very clear on what not to do here. Do not just try to think positive.
Right. Toxic positivity is completely useless here.
Worse than useless. If you tell a brain that is locked in survival mode to just smile and look on the bright side, it registers that command as a threat.
Because you're asking it to drop its shield in the middle of a battlefield.
Exactly. It will just clamp down harder.
So if I can't force myself to be happy, and obviously I shouldn't just wallow in the familiarity of the sadness, what is the middle path? The source suggests a very specific tool here, a question called the pause.
Yes, the pause. Now, it sounds incredibly simple on paper, but it is deeply difficult to execute in the moment.
Yeah.
The instruction is this: when you feel that sudden wave of familiar heaviness, that sudden urge to put on the sad playlist, or that knee-jerk expectation that a meeting is going to go horribly wrong, you stop.
You just freeze.
You stop and you ask yourself one specific question. Is this familiar or is this true?
Is this familiar or is this true? Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm in a mental spiral and I ask myself, is this true? My brain is going to instantly scream, yes, it is true. You are a failure. Everything is currently on fire. How do I possibly trust the answer I give myself?
And that is the crucial difficulty of the practice. When the source asks, is this true? It emphatically does not mean, does it feel true emotionally?
Okay, so what does it mean?
It means, is there immediate, undeniable evidence in my physical reality right now? It is an audit of the present moment.
Oh, I see. So the question isn't, do I feel like a massive failure? The question is, did I actually fail at this specific task sitting right in front of me today?
Exactly. Or if you feel a wave of dread, you ask, I feel unsafe right now, but is there a tiger in the room? Is there a literal physical threat to my life?
And usually the answer is no.
Almost always no. Usually the answer is no. I am sitting on my couch, my doors are locked, and I am objectively safe. The feeling you are experiencing is familiar. It's an echo from the past, but it is not true in the present tense.
That distinction really seems to be the key to prying the armor off. You have to actively label the feeling as a memory instead of treating it like a forecast of the future.
Yes, perfectly said.
Yeah.
You are moving the processing power from your amygdala, which is all reaction, to your prefrontal cortex, which handles analysis. You want to get to a point where you say, oh, I recognize this feeling.
Yeah.
This is just my old anxiety.
Yeah.
It's visiting me because I'm finally relaxing and my nervous system doesn't know what to do with the quiet.
It changes the entire relationship you have with the emotion. Instead of saying, I am sad, you say, I am experiencing a familiar pattern of sadness.
And that tiny shift creates just enough space, maybe it's only a second or two, but in that second, you can choose not to pick up the phone to doom scroll. You can choose not to play the sad song. You can just sit with the silence.
But the source warns us, and I want to really highlight this for everyone listening, sitting with that silence is going to feel absolutely awful at first.
Oh, it would feel incredibly unsafe. We have to be brutally honest about that. This is the part most self-help books just gloss over entirely. When you finally put down the armor, you feel naked. When you stop predicting disaster, you feel incredibly vulnerable. You actually have to build up a physical tolerance to the anxiety of happiness.
The anxiety of happiness, that's such a paradox, but it makes total sense. If I'm not constantly bracing for impact, I feel like I'm tempting fate.
You are holding the door open for the unknown. And remember, the unknown is where the tigers are, sure, but it is also where the joy is.
You can't separate them.
No, you cannot have one without the risk of the other. The pause is simply the tool that lets you stand in that doorway without slamming it shut in a panic.
I imagine this is very much like muscle training. The first time you ask, is this familiar or true, it might not work at all. You might just spiral anyway.
You almost certainly will spiral the first few times, but you have planted a seed of doubt in that automatic pattern. The next time you try it, the gap between the trigger and the reaction might be a little bit wider.
Because you are essentially rewiring a neural pathway that has been reinforced for years, maybe even decades for some of us.
Exactly. That kind of structural remodeling does not happen overnight.
It's so interesting because we started this deep dive talking about biology and brain hardware and evolution, but we're ending up in a place that feels almost, I don't know, existential.
How so?
Well, because if I strip away the sad person identity, the one I've carried for years, I'm basically left with a blank slate, and blank slates are terrifying.
That is the final frontier of this source material, the ultimate question of identity. We often cling to our sadness not just because it's biologically safe, but because it tells us a story about who we are.
Like, I am the one who suffered.
Right. I am the one who endures. There's actually a lot of ego wrapped up in that narrative.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the survivor.
Yeah.
But if I stop surviving and actually start thriving, do I lose my badge of honor? Do I lose my depth?
Precisely. And that is why the source asks us to really consider this deeply. What parts of ourselves are we holding on to simply because we are afraid of who we would be without them? If you finally put down the heavy comfort of your familiar sadness, you have to find a completely new way to be in the world. You have to find a new fuel source that isn't just cortisol and anxiety.
And that's the real challenge, isn't it? To find out who you are when you aren't fighting a war that actually ended 10 years ago.
Beautifully put. The war is over. The armor's just weighing you down now.
Well, that is absolutely a lot to chew on for today. I think I'm going to need to practice that pause about 10 times just getting through the rest of this afternoon.
It is a practice. It is definitely not a destination.
For everyone listening, I want to challenge you to give it a shot. The next time the doom settles in on a quiet day, just ask yourself the question, is this familiar or is this true? See what happens when you create that space. Thank you so much for going deep with us today.
It was a pleasure. Until next time.